All right, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome, peace and blessings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live. All right, we got Twin Pyramid in the house. Peace and blessings, Twin. We're definitely glad to see you. Tonight, our topic is dealing with tonight is the three wars. Oh, let me put my computer back where it needs to be. The three wars confronting the ghost of Jim Crow. Now, there's a guy by the name of Nick Fuentes, and he is one of these quote unquote right wingers who has I would say, a pretty decent following and gaining strength more and more. Now, he has come out to outrightly start attacking Trump now. And
Really?
oh, yeah. So we're going to see whether he outlast or outwin MAGA or what. But I watched, he had, I think, 3 conferences. The first conference, he had about 500 people show up. And maybe about 500 or 400 watching live. Next conference, he did a little bit better than that, had over 1,000 show up. Third conference, he had a whole lot more people, even politicians to show up to his venue and to talk. He's been featured on Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. Was he on Megyn Kelly? I'm not sure about Megyn Kelly, but he's definitely making his rounds, and he's getting his group together, and they're going out. And the thing is this: he's more definitely in your face. This is what I'm saying, and I'm not changing it. Trump, he will like to, sometimes skirt around it and say it a nice way, but old boy Nick, he ain't squirting around nothing. He really believes what he says, and he believes is what he's talking about will save America. He's explicit in his supposedly white supremacy ideology.
With the name Fuentes.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Exactly. And, I watched his video last night where Marjorie Taylor Greene came on. And he talks about Christ so much that there honestly looks like they're trying to get people to convert to their way of Christianity. And it's like these white folks are eating it up and not turning away from it. It's like he's feeding them something that their souls have been yearning for.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on him, Doc?
Well, the entire thing is, it's almost deja vu for me as a historian, because it reminds me of Andrew Jackson and the idea of James Monroe and the idea of manifest destiny. That America was a land that was gifted to the white man, and specific the white man. Okay, not white women, but white men, to do with what he chose to do with. That this is in many ways their birthright. And so there is within that, just being absolutely honest with you, a historic precedent for it. But there's also another thing of forcing other people to adopt your religious beliefs, your political views, and what have you. They are very, very slyly. And I actually had someone tell me this week that, because we're, of course, we're going through what we go through down here in Texas as far as being able to even talk about race now.
Mm.
I had someone tell me that whiteness is not a race. And
Mm.
so it's in many ways for me a move to establish whiteness as being the normal default set. And anybody who is not adhering to that, you're the abnormal ones. And you're either going to get down or you're going to get rolled over. And there's a lot to be said for that type of thinking, because in many ways, it numbers matter in America. And if you can get enough people to agree with that type of thing, and keep in mind, if you're talking about not using politics as the primary or the only pillar that you're dealing with, you're going to utilize religion. You're opening it up to a whole nother ball game, because religious people can be on the left and the right. We're Christians, so we're going to join together to make this happen. Politics be damned.
And that reminded me. I had saw a video, and it was like how Arabs became white.
Hmm.
Hold on one second. How Arabs became white,
Hmm.
and they were in this. They took it to court. This is a matter of court record, and I wish I had saved it so that I could play it, but I didn't. I didn't. But if I can find it, I'm gonna definitely play it. But it showed where they were fighting for citizenship,
Hmm.
and they wasn't allowed to be citizens. And the final thing at the courthouse, he was allowed to speak to the judge, and he said, "Look, Jesus is white. I come from the land where Jesus came from.
Hmm.
So I have to be white."
Hmm.
Judge came back, "You're white. Case closed. Over." And this is how they became to be white. So, that is very interesting. Um, that comment about whiteness. And I think that more and more of us definitely need to get in there and understand the political leanings of what these demons are actually saying when they talk about their quote unquote whiteness. Welcome, Matt 285. Glad to see you, big bro. Now, in Nick's nationalism, Christian nationalism, he promotes a version of Christianity that is not about spirituality, but about power and cultural dominance.
Hmm.
He argues that American laws should be based on hold on one second, should be based on his interpretation of Christian doctrine, which excludes other faiths and other lifestyles. So, Doctor, if he's saying that he want laws based on his version of Christianity and his doctrine, what would that look like?
What he wants it to look like. You're looking at something that has no even hermeneutical basis, no scriptural basis whatsoever. It is quite simply what benefits me um, what's most politically expedient. That's what they're talking about. And the frightening thing about that is quite simply that if it isn't going to be based upon scripture, it's going to be wholly based upon the idea of what they want as men. And that's frightening.
Mm.
That is extremely frightening, because there's in many ways no way to disprove or to fight against that,
Mhm.
because this is how we see the world as being right. And so if you don't see it this way, there's something wrong with you. It's not, there's no room in there for you to go ahead and argue against anything, because this is what I think, and this is and it's, and the basis for it is actually coming out of my experience and my belief system.
Mm, mm, mm. Well, this
So
is a picture.
go ahead.
I was trying to show a picture.
Yeah, he looks white, don't he?
The new face of the right wing Christian nationalist.
Hmm.
Very, very interesting to see that this dude to call white folks, and they come, and black folks come as well. And
It's the call of Christianity, and that's what makes it so seductive and so dangerous, because you're not talking about race. You're talking about something. You're talking about an umbrella over a larger umbrella. Race will get you so many people, and it will in many ways leave a lot of people from under that umbrella. But when you're talking about religion, anybody can come.
Mhm.
Christianity says, "Come as you are." There's no qualifier. God is no respecter of person. But when you come, you expect it to toe the line of what it is that we're talking about.
Mm, mm, mm. That is definitely true. That is definitely true. Now he's the primary driver of this great replacement theory, the idea that there's a
How
conspiracy.
how ironic is that?
Exactly, exactly. That conspiracy to replace white people with black and brown immigrants. Um,
And there's a brown man who is arguing that.
exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, what is the solution to this? Is the
Mm,
solution to get rid of black and brown people, especially brown people?
mhm.
Because we can go ahead and start with you.
Exactly.
It's illogical. And the scary part of it
Mm,
is that the illogic that is supporting it is in many ways not enough to disqualify it, because
mm,
it should be a situation where you laugh that off and say, wait a minute, hold on, you ain't even white.
mhm,
But that
mhm,
obvious thing is not doing it at
mm,
all. So
mm, mm.
that's a problem right there. When
Really.
you have reality separated from common sense, you can look
Mhm.
at him. You ain't even got to look at him. You know, Fuentes. You know who the most famous Fuentes was?
Who?
Julio Fuentes, who lived next to Fred Sanford in the jump
Oh,
field.
yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, that was Julio's name, Julio Fuentes.
Wow.
So
Mm,
now the Fuentes name is white. Come on, man.
mm,
Come on,
mm,
this is ridiculous.
mm. And I was looking to see whether what's that girl name? The white girl who had Vivek on, and she told him straight to her, his face, I wouldn't vote for you because you Indian, and he's carrying the white banner, he's carrying the white flag down all the way, and she told him straight to you, I wouldn't vote for you because you Indian, you're not white.
See, the thing is that there seems to be a I don't know, cognitive dissonance
Mm,
where these people are not understanding that there are people out here who do not care about what your political ideology is, what your religious stance is, how they may benefit from you winning.
mhm,
They can't get past. They're addicted to whiteness, and they would rather struggle and have like we've just seen their SNAP benefits snatched up
mhm,
by a white man than to have any other race in that position and provide them those benefits.
mhm,
It's illogical, but it is. Those are the wages of whiteness.
mm,
Poor and working class white folk are going to always, if history's any indicator, they're going to always side with whiteness. Even when you look at the women's rights movement when they were trying to get the right to vote, and you of course have black women who are major players, and
So you better get the message and get it straight. You gonna need some bridge work.
you have black women who are major players in this, and when it came down to it, white women from non-Southern white women joined in forces with Southern white women. And the Southern white women are in many ways saying quite simply, listen, we don't want them as part of the movement. So you're going to have a compromise made. You got one white woman honoring another white woman and distancing themselves from black allies. And the non-Southern white women, they basically tell black women, listen, yeah, y'all can be a part of the march, but you're going to have to walk at the back of it.
mhm,
We're looking at the same thing. This
mhm,
isn't new. You're only, my God, what would it take for non-white people to truly understand that you can't outgood your racial identity? You just can't.
mhm,
Because at the end of the day, something's going to occur and they're going to in many ways allow you to see and understand that you're not one of us.
mhm. Exactly. And I'm waiting for Trump to respond, because he's called Trump and the MAGA group a scam artist. He called Trump, he says Trump is a scam artist, and he's criticizing him for not being racial enough, not being radical enough. He was angry at Trump that he hired globalists, supported Israel, tried to appeal to black voters, even though it was only superficially. He was pissed off that Trump spoke nicely about some black folks. And, quote unquote, yeah, well, even blacks would be happy with this. It pissed old Nick off that Trump would even be willing to say anything of reaching out to black people. Um, and so with this verbiage that is attracting power on white people, the Groper Army is what they're called.
Okay.
The Groper Army, that's what he calls for army. All mostly Gen Z white men.
Hmm.
They're internet savvy, they're angry, they use irony, memes, and trolling to disguise their extreme racism, making it palatable for younger people. Doc, sounds like we have a problem on our hands.
No, you don't have a problem on your hand. You've always had a problem on your hands. This is just the latest manifestation of it. They've always been there. And they'll always find themselves to each other. It's just what it is. This isn't new. These people aren't new. You've always had a segment of white males in American society who felt that this is their country and they're going to behave in the same way. I'm having a very difficult time of even understanding how he's any different from MAGA and from those individuals. I think that what he's trying to do is quite simply split hairs and capitalize upon one or two elements of MAGA not being um, so white supremacist out front. He's going
Mm-hmm.
to get those followers, but they're going to all be on that far right, that alt right. It's just it's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ideology. This isn't new,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to get it's going to be the same cast of characters. You're gonna have an attempt to rally people around this, but what you're really angling for is quite simply, are there more of us who feel this way than those brown and black people who can get politically engaged? That's what it's going to come down to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, what you're talking about is a battle for the soul of America again. Are you able to go into a voting booth and vote your conscience, even if your conscience calls you to be to vote for a non far right Republican? This whole matter reminds me of the night that Obama won the first time. I was doing some television work for a station over in College Station, and College Station is ultra, ultra, ultra red. Okay, so much to the point where the news director who had invited me to come over there, he said, "I don't feel safe with you going home tonight."
Oh, wow.
He said, "So what I've done is I've gotten you a hotel room, and you'll come back here in the morning." He said, "But when you leave here, because they're on their way," he said, "when you leave here, I want you to call me, and I want you to stay on the phone with me until you hit your hotel room." He said, "Don't go out and try and grab nothing to eat. Don't do any of that." He said, "If you
Mm-hmm.
need to grab something out of a vending machine in the lobby of the hotel." And I had to laugh inside because when I got to the hotel, I looked up, and the only restaurant that the closest restaurant to the hotel was a BW3's, and I said, "Yeah, they probably gonna be looking, at the chicken wing spot to get to snatch a brother up." So I went ahead and went in, but it was one of those where you have that type of palpable fear. Okay,
Wow.
and I did the correspondence work on whatever day he was elected. Then I had to come back and do the morning show with them as well. And after I finished, I had to go back to the hotel to get my stuff. Okay, I hadn't checked out yet. And as I'm walking up to the front entrance of the hotel, there's probably about 6 or 7 white folks standing there in front of the door talking. You can tell when somebody is not willing to yield any room for you to pass. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to literally forcibly brush myself past them. And when I get in there, one of the little Mexican ladies, and I imagine that she was probably, I don't know what she did in the hotel, but it was two of them. They came out the back and they said, "Hey, you famous?" And I said, "I'm famous." She said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. We saw you on TV." I was like, "Really? When?" She said, "We put your show on. We always show that show in the lobby of our hotel." So these white folk were sitting there eating their continental breakfast, watching me talk about them. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the questions that came up was it was a white female who asked it. She said, "Aren't you proud of your people?" And I said, "You know what? Black people couldn't have done this by themselves. If black folk could have elected a black president by themselves, it would have happened a long time ago." I said, "So you know who I'm really proud of? I'm proud of the few white folk who were able to go into the privacy of a voting booth and vote for the candidate that they knew was obviously the best candidate. That's who I'm proud of right now." Okay. That rubbed them the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it seriously rubbed them the wrong way to the point where, I'm sitting down there trying to have my little, continental breakfast and what have you. And if looks could kill, I would have been dead. And so I remember I was going to the elevator, and I told him, I said, please do not be so fearful, because tomorrow when you wake up, you'll still be white, but you will have a Harvard trained black man as your president. And I jumped on the elevator real quick, went and grabbed my stuff. I didn't come back down the elevator. I went down the stairs and went out the side of the hotel and went to my car and drove home. And
Mm.
the news guy, he had asked me to call him when I pulled out, and I did. He said, "Listen, the speed limit of the road that you're on, if it's 35, you do 33."
Oh, wow.
He said, "Because they looking, you know."
Mm.
And this is the same news station I had done some work with before, and I didn't understand
Mm.
why he had given me the directives that he gave me the first time I went there. But a part of his instructions was actually for me to bring a change of clothes. And so when I went there, I took a change of clothes, didn't understand why. And after we had finished taping, he said, "Okay, go in the back, change your clothes, because they're going to be looking for a light-skinned black man in a suit." He said, "So change your clothes so that, and he had me get on the phone with him again there, you know. So
Mm.
it's a different type of thing. But when you add it all up, they're arguing about minute differences. Like, why didn't you just come out and call them niggas?
Right.
That's what they're arguing about. They ain't arguing about nothing that's really substantive. And you still have a situation where you're going to have some black folk who believe that they're exceptions. Okay. And the idea that these people are exceptions is wholly within it has no historical basis at all. It's within their minds. And in many ways, you could almost argue that these people are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. They've been so oppressed that they're identifying with their oppressor. And
Mm.
the idea that they're able to, and you'll hear this argument, they'll couch their views within this argument, which is a very flimsy argument, that they're conservative. Well, it's, you know black folk are the most conservative people on the face of the planet Earth.
Mm.
This week I was lecturing in class about the Montgomery bus boycott, and Claudette Colvin, a young black girl, was arrested on the bus the same week that Rosa Parks was. They would not use Claudette Colvin's case because the legend was that she was a single, unwed, or pregnant black girl. And the black church ain't getting behind it. We've always been the race of morality. If you go back and you look at the Pentecostal church, look at how the women dress their long, flowing white dresses, because they didn't want to give you any opportunity to say that they were loose women.
Mm.
Look at how you've allowed a vocal minority, like these fools is up here talking about they was going to rob Walmart with shopping carts and what have you, to take the place of people who have always shown scorn towards people who didn't pull their own weight. Hell, I got some family members right now I don't speak to because they've proven to be wayward and didn't want to be productive or efficient in their lives.
Mm. Definitely. One thing, one of the many things that Nick has said, he said it's better for them, talking about us. It was better for us. It was better in general. They had to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal. We all agree it's better for them. It's better for us. And of course, what he's saying in there is that he's trying to rewrite history to make segregation look benevolent.
Yes.
He's want those young white men to believe that oppressing black people is actually helping us. And, I remember from looking at this video of a white boy back in the day, he was a slave owner.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, the niggers need us.
Mm-hmm.
We got to think for the niggers.
Mm-hmm.
We got to tell them what to do because they can't figure it out on their own. We got to think for the Negroes. It is the way God meant it.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to see this stuff again in real time right in front of our faces.
And for it to be coming from a Puerto Rican
Exactly.
or Cuban is stupefying.
Exactly. And so, I'm looking at it and like I said before, I see things through a racial lens. I don't see things as other people want you to see it. I see it as it is. And understanding this racial lens that he's Puerto Rican or whatever, and there'll be more
And
who
I only assume that he's Puerto Rican because Julio Fuentes was Puerto Rican.
right, right. And it's shit. It's the same damn thing with old George Zimmerman.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. They identify with that whiteness because they want to be white. And the problem, Doc, one of the problems is this. These angry white folks that are attracted to what Fuentes and others of his ilk are saying, how are you mad at black people when your own white people is the ones that did it to you? There's no black person in the White House right now that took away your food stamps that you need this. That wasn't us.
Yeah, but they suffer from confirmation bias. They are they have the outcome already, and they try to reverse engineer it to find justifications for it. So if you believe that black folk are the bee's knees, they getting everything, you'll seek a reason why, and you'll build that even if it's not historically supportable. Now, my mother worked with a white guy by the name of Mark, and Mark told my mother, he said, Kathy, I used to believe that, because he told me this, his father told him he couldn't get a job because black folk got all the jobs. Only black people were able to get jobs. And so my mother says to him, because he's working at Gorman Rupp with my mother says, well, look around. What do you see? And he said, I see two black people who work in here at a company that has got like 150 in the office. Mm-hmm. The absence of experience, exposure, what have you, allows for you to be led in whatever direction they want to lead you. And that's just what it is. That's what it comes down to. It's the exact same thing that you see with Adolf Hitler and the rise of Nazism, that National Socialist Party. Mm-hmm. He primarily blames two populations for the fall of Germany. The first population are the Jews, mm-hmm. and the second population is the Semi-Roma, the Gypsies. Mm-hmm. They're perfect to blame because you know nothing about them. And if you know nothing about them, you can ascribe whatever history and variables and characteristics that you want to them. And that's exactly what is happening right now. It's an amazing thing that and the white bias is a different type of thing. Mm-hmm. And the reason that it's different is that whiteness seemingly overrides personal experience. So a lot of these white folk who may be working a menial job, working right next to black folk, that's their personal experience. That's seemingly somehow erased from them the moment they get around other white folk who start complaining about black folk having everything. Mm. One of the moments that will always stand out to me with John McCain was that moment when he was involved in in a speech. It wasn't a debate. And a lady gets up and
Yeah.
says, she starts talking about Obama. And John McCain says, no, 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 ma'am. No, ma'am. He's a good, decent, hardworking family man.
Mhm.
So now the question becomes, how many of them have the courage to check their own in public? And if you don't, then you're one of them. Let's just be honest. You're one of them.
Mhm.
And it flows from, and I have to deal with this often in a round sort of round way when I'm dealing with my students who are homophobic, and they take the position that these types of white folk take towards black folk. And I just kind of say, you know, you're going too far. You're using too wide of a brush, you know, to the point where you're not really talking about anyone specifically. And that's what they do in regards to talking about black folk. If you listen to them, there are no black folk who have an education. There are no
Mhm.
black folk who have jobs. There are no black folk who have ever done anything that's, you know, and it reverts us back to an essay that Carter G. Woodson wrote. Um, and Woodson, the father of Black history, created Black History Day, Black History Week, and eventually Black History Month. Woodson asked this very interesting question. He says, why not destroy the Negro if he hasn't created anything in society? And Woodson's point was, when you're dealing with these types of people,
Mhm.
that's their springboard. They don't think you can even think for yourself. They don't think you've achieved anything in your life. Okay. And some of these people are, dare I say it, married to black people,
Mm.
living in the house with black people. You know,
Mm.
I have a very good friend, very close friend, whose mother was white, his father was black, and he told me this story. He said, "Man, this is the most um, disappointing thing that my mother ever said to me." He said, "Our washer broke down," and she said, "Don't call no black man. If you want to fix right, you better call a white man."
Ooh, wow.
You know, and he was like, "Damn."
Mm.
And there's sort of there's something about the socialization process
Mm.
that will put you in those types of situations.
Mm. 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 Yeah, I saw this video where this mixed family, the daughter evidently went out and had babies by a black man, three, and they happened to be over the mom's house. And the mom is mad because something happened. And she just went off, that's why you be with that motherfucking nigger, this, nigger, that, nigger, that, nigger, that. And the dad trying to tell her to stop saying that. The children are right here, No, hell with that nigger, 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 nigger. And she's like, you calling my children niggas? Yeah, I'm calling all these niggas. They all niggas. That's your grandchildren, and they still niggas. It's like, wow.
Oh,
Wow.
oh God.
Mm, mm, mm,
You know, yeah,
mm,
that's all I can say.
It's deep.
That's all I
He has another quote where he says, colonizer is my favorite slur against white people. We did colonize the earth. That's what we did. We own it. We colonized you. We enslaved you. You got me.
yeah.
That's not epic.
That's
It's
Stockholm syndrome, bro.
it's demonstrative of our smart and how powerful we are. Yeah,
Yeah.
we colonized the earth. It shows how smart and powerful we are. And because you couldn't beat us, this is why you subservient to us.
Yeah. See, he's made a tactical error.
Mm-hmm.
He should have gotten one of those. Remember how the ventriloquists would have those dummies?
Right.
And the dummy would talk. He needed a white dummy. He could have actually really went somewhere with this if he had a white boy who was saying these things. He would be a star. But the irony of how this thing is going to break apart, the irony is going to be that there's going to be some white folk who are right now saying, "The fuck, that's a Puerto Rican? Y'all over there following a Puerto Rican for real? You got to be kidding me! I don't care what he's saying. He's still a Puerto Rican." And that's going to be the end game for it. Okay, the irony of you trying to rally for white nationalism, which at its core repudiates non-white people, is the height of irony. What are you fucking thinking? You think that you can outrace racism? History tells us that you're wrong. You can't. Dear Lord. Dear Lord.
And he had the nerve to jump on J.D. Vance from having an Indian wife and mixed race children, implying that a white man with a non-white family cannot be trusted or to be able to protect the interests of white folks. And it's like, huh? How do you?
He's the Spanish version of Clayton Bigsby, the black white supremacist that Dave Chappelle did on his show. He's heard so many negative things about black people, although he's physically blind. Okay, he doesn't believe that he's black anymore. He adopted those values into his worldview and into his life. That's who this fool is.
Exactly.
I would like to go myself. So you look up and you see me in the audience there. Trust me, I am there for the comedy. Okay. When you consider how much comedians are charging to go here, if they having a free comedy show, I'm definitely gonna show up.
Exactly. And so it's because when you sit there and for me, watching his little political gathering of all his groupies and seeing how it growed and still growing.
Yeah.
Because it's speaking to the unsaid beliefs of so many white folks. It's just like Doc in the first and second Trump run for election. And the white folks say, "Oh, I'm not voting for him. But got in that booth and check that leather."
That's why I tell people you can't trust the polls. Because these people know that in public what they're saying makes them pariah. If they said it in public, it would make them pariah. And when they leave their voting poll, they're going to say, "Well, yeah, oh, I would never vote for it." But when in the sanctity and the privacy of that voting booth, what did you do?
Exactly.
And what many of them are doing is pulling that lever for Trump, pulling that lever for evil. I mean, the irony of it is that these people really don't understand that we're all in the same boat. What did you think? That you were going to get to shop on the right side of the grocery store where the prices were cheaper than on the left side? No, you're going to be buying from the same shelves. Okay. And when those shelves are unaffordable to you, what are you going to do? And the amazing thing is that these people have developed an uncanny ability to, even in those dire situations, to still find a way to not blame those that they should be blaming. Why you over here? What? I asked a brother who was proud that he was a burglar. He said, "Yeah, that's what I do. I rob and I steal, I rip and I run." I said, "Well, why are you doing that over here? We ain't got nothing."
Exactly.
Go over there to River Oaks. Okay, I'm gonna tell you where you can go get it. Okay, where they got it. Go over there to River Oaks. Okay, they whatever you grab out their house, I guarantee you, it's gonna be worth more than if you stole this whole house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but he knows, and this was on the news a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Brother broke into these white folk house over there in River Oaks. They're out at dinner, get a notification, and he's looking at this brother on camera. Got up from dinner with his family, left his family there, went
Mm-hmm.
home, went in that house, killed his ass, left and went back to dinner.
Wow.
And then when they came back, they called the police and
Mm.
the ambulance. He was dead already. He was dead by then,
Mm. Mm-mm.
and didn't do a day in jail. Going over there, going over there with them. They don't
Exactly.
got it.
Mm.
So this
Mm.
whole thing, really what you're talking about is someone speaking to the historically illiterate and people who are probably illiterate in general, probably can't even read. Okay.
Mm.
And they're just going off of these quote unquote sound bites. And he speaks to the angst and the disappointment that they have in
Mm-hmm.
regards to why in a nation that is their birthright, they're struggling. The reason they're struggling is because we had to take care of all these black people, and you on SNAP, you on Section 8, but
Mm.
you don't see that connection. You can't make that connection because it's too painful. Come on, people,
Mm-hmm.
use your brain.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, he has a thing where he says, um, "Your body, my choice," to mock women and assert their dominance. And you did a blog on manhood, um, and as Nick is defining his manhood by dominating others, your understanding of what manhood, how is that different from what Nick defines manhood as?
My position of manhood is being a number one, a sole determiner
Mm-hmm.
of what it is going to be your path and working your way towards that path. Being a responsible provider for those that you are responsible for. Okay, I ain't talking about going out here simping and tricking. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about providing for those who are under your kingdom, under your dominion. What he's talking about is quite simply the re-enslavement of women in regards to what it is they can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And he may be talking about right now just the idea of reproductive rights. He's ultimately going to round the corner where he's talking about their right to work. Let's go ahead and really accelerate it and
Mm-hmm.
call them what they are. You talk about Islamic fundamentalism. This is Christian fundamentalism, where they want to reverse the clock back to a point where women have no say and have no rights whatsoever. The same way they want to extenuate biblical verses that quite simply say, slaves, obey thy masters. No historical context, no really understanding of what it is. Just a moment. Now you go ahead and be a good old boy or be a good old girl, and you follow what it is I tell you. I was watching a episode of Hoarders years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Older white hillbilly guy, kind of put you in the mind that he'd kill you if he need to. And
Mm-hmm.
his daughter was the one trying to get his house cleaned up and get things thrown away. She went too far because he stopped and he looked at her and he said, "You abide by me." And I'm like, now he didn't went back to biblical language. And if you going back to abide by me,
Mm-hmm.
shit, he may stone your ass. Ain't nothing off the table. Somebody tell you to abide by me. I told him to abide by me. Come on.
Mm-mm-mm. So, Doc, let me ask you, do you believe in the term toxic masculinity?
Do I believe in toxic masculinity?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do. I actually do. But I also believe in toxic femininity. You know, I believe that there are some ways that people can arrange and operate their lives where they are of no good to themselves or to anyone that's around them.
Mm.
But what people are talking about when they utilize the term toxic masculinity in general
Hmm.
is kind of the same thing that they mean when they talk about, well, you know, you're a narcissist. It don't even mean shit. Okay. All right. It doesn't mean shit. That's just a catchphrase that they're throwing against you. Okay. Do I believe that there are some constructs of manhood that should not be in existence? Certainly. The same way that there are more constructs of femininity that should not be allowed to exist.
Hmm.
Okay. But the idea of these catchphrases that remain undefined and are
Hmm.
used to kind of silence other people, no, I disagree with that whatsoever.
So what part of that toxic masculinity shouldn't exist? What do you mean by that?
Grabbing somebody by the throat and beating them into submission,
Okay. Okay.
physical violence against people because you're physically stronger to hold them down and to exert your will on them. The same thing monetarily.
Hmm.
Okay. You know, the problem that we have with this society now, especially, and I'll just deal with Black America, is quite simply that the quote unquote liberation of Black women has put the Black community in a situation where far too many of our children are not being raised by mothers. Okay. They're being raised by alpha females, females who have adopted and believe in the values and the characteristics of men, of manhood, that might equals right. That's a problem. And what you've seen is a response to that,
Hmm.
because sisters are flat out coming out and saying to you that I don't need no man. And they've been saying that for a long time. Okay.
Right.
Brothers
Right.
have responded to that finally. If it's one thing that the manosphere has allowed, it's given Black men a spot where they can discuss these issues. So you understand it's not just you, because most Black men suffer in silence, okay, are depressed in silence. It ain't just you. So what we're looking at, the response now is, well, go ahead, go on your own. Do what you're gonna do. And there's a certain segment of Black women, and I would put the number at maybe 2 out of 10,
Mm.
3 out of 10 at most,
Mm.
who are wives.
What's
And
what?
who are wives, who understand what the role of a wife is, who understand, scripturally speaking, what a helpmeet is. Okay. Those are rare. And those are usually in many ways snatched up. Okay. And then you have this other segment of individuals who have decided for whatever, because everything costs.
Hmm.
Everything comes at a cost. Okay. If you decide that you want to go ahead and invest in getting an education, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to invest in going forward and in developing a professional career, or work at a job, which is what the majority of people do for a long time. They ain't got no career. They're just working at a job. You want to do that. And then you hit 35, 40. Well, that focus on the career comes at a cost.
Hmm.
And that cost could very well be that you never get married. Because the men that you're looking at 35 and 40 in your age group are looking at younger versions of you at 18 to 22.
Mm.
Okay. And now, do you have a career? Yes. That's your baby. That's your baby. But one of the problems is that a lot of this boss chick, I need to be in charge of things, is number one a thread thin veneer that is hiding a whole lot of stuff. I had a recent exchange with a female student who was definitely angling to have an argument and to talk about black women and this and that. And her allegation was quite simply that black women are, and I know you've heard this, are the most educated. And when I pushed back against that, I told her, no, y'all aren't. Y'all are the most enrolled. But think about it logically. Do you believe that y'all are more educated than Nigerian women? Okay. And of course, she said, well, they black too. I said, now under these circumstances, because it's beneficial to your argument, now Nigerians are black. Under other circumstances, you're going to call them African. And I said, what about Asian women? What about white women who have all the breaks and the benefits in the world? And then, of course, she goes into, well, we start more businesses than anyone else. I said, well, let's sort of put a qualifier on your businesses. Let's only count businesses that employ 20 people or more. Because y'all flooding the business rolls with lash masters in wigs. That ain't really a business, to be honest with you. Okay. And then she wouldn't give up with that. And she goes into, well, black men are broke. I said, well, if black men are broke, then black women are broker, because black men make more money than black women do. And it's all aimed at the idea of causing discord and getting a leg up upon who should be your partner in life.
Right.
So we're really talking about, and recent studies have proven that within 5 years, if trends continue the way they are, 40% of black men will be married. Now, they ain't all married to black women. And if existing trends continue, we're falling closer to 20% of black women being married. So here you have black men being married at a 4 out of 10 rate. And you have black women being married, at a dwindling 2 out of 10 rate. And black women are more likely to leave their marriages than anyone else. So we've gotten something wrong, materially wrong, that you can go within, and we're talking about not even a century. We're talking about half a century, that you can go from the most married population in America to the least married population. In 50 years, we've gotten something wrong, major league wrong.
Wow. We're going to go to this video of Minister Farrakhan talking about manhood. And then we're going to come back and discuss a little bit further into this manhood and see what we come up with.
Fierce, man. I'm telling you, I had gotten fierce, man. I'm telling you the truth. That I was a captain. Before I knew what a minister was, I was a captain, and I was a hard captain. I mean, I had the soldiers popping because I loved the soldier. I'm just telling you, man. I lived this thing. My poor little wife, bless her heart, we didn't have no washing machines and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know nothing about no Chinese laundry. We didn't know anything about no Chinese. We didn't have no money to give no Chinaman to do our shirt. My wife was Ting Ling Wang Tu. And we had to have a white shirt going to FOI. We had to have a white shirt on Wednesday and a white shirt on Friday and a white shirt on Sunday. And I would come in from my little job, and my shirts would be in the tub soaking. She had a scrub board and had to wear her hands out, getting that dirt out the collar and out the sleeves. I couldn't afford a nice shirt with cufflinks. Any white shirt would do. And I was telling the brother, I walked in a store the other day and I bought 3 suits, and they were good suits. This is one of them I got on. Wait. I'm just saying something to you. For 9 years as a minister, I never bought a new suit. For 9 years. I used to wear old suits. I don't know whether they came off a dead man or what. I would buy them in the pawn shop, $5, $10, out of the trunk of my brother's car. They never did fit right. Because when you buying something in pawn, you got to make it, hanging off the shoulder, baggy in the pants. You should have seen your brother. I was a wreck. But I was a Muslim. I was jamming hard. I'm giving the brothers calisthenics, and when I got out on the floor, they could read the funny papers in the soles of my shoes, man. Therefore, I had to get some money together to buy me a pair of shoes. 9 years I was like this. But I never broke stride. I kept on going. My wife couldn't have no new bedroom suit. We didn't have no money. I don't like that. I don't like no white man telling me you owe me. And nigga, where's the payment? If you start pressing me, I'll beat your behind. That's the way I feel, man. You don't take away my manhood. Come on. Elijah Muhammad was making a man out of me, and if you try to make me a punk, I'll kill you. I don't give a damn who you are. Don't try to punk me off, whether you're a captain or lieutenant. I'm a man, goddammit, and you treat me like a man. Nobody joins Islam to be made a punk. We come to be made into men and women that will show the responsibility, but not to be berated and mistreated.
That's right.
You understand? I don't like that.
Yes, sir.
And I don't like no white man telling me what I owe you.
All right. So there we have Mr. Farrakhan and talking about manhood, giving a good example of it. But some would say, Doc, that's toxicity. They would say that it's violent. What would you say it to be?
That it's manhood. That in every way, when you're talking about manhood, you have to understand that you need to put yourself in a situation where you are sort of beholden to no one other than God. And so when you're sitting around here and you have these responsibilities to other entities and other people, can you really be a man? It's one of the most damning things that I've seen people go through, and it is quite simply having 8 million forms of debt going on simultaneously. How can you even think at night? How can you take care of your children when you're sitting up and you have a situation where you don't know if you can feed your children because the checking the cash people took the money out directly? As soon as you got paid, that money was gone because you have made some contractual obligations to people who are, for lack of a better word, bloodsuckers. So in many ways, when you're talking about the idea of manhood and that being a violent form of manhood, that's coming from people who don't have standards. And without standards, anything goes. Without standards, without the ability to think and reason, we're no different from animals in the animal kingdom. And manhood is not flashy, it's reserved, it's serious. Okay. And it is self-sacrificing. You have to get yourself to a point where, and it takes me back to the Gerald Levert, Eddie Levert recording of Wind Beneath My Wings, where as a man, you got to become comfortable with just being the wind that allows your children to soar. The wind that allows your wife to be able to sleep well at night, assured that you got it taken care of, regardless of what it is. And you're not going to be able to do that without a reverence and a respect for God, without a submission to God. Because without submitting to God, what are you submitting to? Because you're going to submit to something. And for far too many of our people, we're submitting to gossip. We're submitting to the white man. We're submitting to bills and what have you, and not living a life of discipline and restraint.
Mm.
Many people are living for the outside world, living for social media. Everything that happens to you, every thought that you got, social media. Got to put it up here. Let them know what's going on with me. Reserve something. And that thing that you need to reserve is your family business, and in many ways, your commitment to being a man.
Mm. Great point. Great point. Um, Fuentes also claimed that Black people are happier under white rule. When it comes to our neighborhoods, Doc, and we're not owning, as we say, quote unquote, we're not owning the block. And you wrote a blog that I would like for you to read. Without work, everything is rotten.
Mhm. Yeah.
You remember that? Can you pull that and read that for us?
Yeah, if you give me 1 second, keep going, and I will grab it real quick.
Okay. Because we have to begin to own where we live. We have to begin to be able to have businesses and operate businesses in the proper way, and making sure that our money rotates in our community faster and longer than it does right now. And, the hard truth is, if we don't have our own economy, then we are proving Fuentes to be right.
Well,
And this is something we cannot do.
I don't know if we're proving him to be right under those circumstances, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
But that doesn't deny the need for us to do better in those regards. So, but here's the piece. Can you see it on my screen? On your screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
The piece is from manhoodraceculture.com, and you subscribe, what have you. I'm rededicating myself to it as we speak, but I'm ultra busy right now. But the piece is titled "Without Work, All is Rotten: The Continuing Last Place Status of Black Male Workers." And sort of a background to this piece is that I am also, in addition to being an African American historian, I'm also a labor historian. So I deal with issues of race, class, labor, socialism, communism, capitalism. So here's the piece. While earning a PhD at the Ohio State University, I decided to honor the path taken by my father and many uncles who were card-carrying union workers by focusing many of my studies on labor history. I had lived a life that made any denial of the labor movement impact on my life foolhardy, as it was instrumental in my material existence. While studying America's longest running war between workers and owners, I encountered an illuminating quote: "Without work, all is rotten." Those words influenced my worldview to this moment. I lived in a home where work dictated so much about our lives, such as when we would vacation and what we could afford to eat. I understood early on that my fate as a worker was no different than my ancestors. The only thing left to determine was what sector I would exchange labor for access to goods. Work anchored my life. For obvious reasons, it is always daunting when matters of race and labor converge. Of course, the monopolization of political economic resources by wicked white men contextualizes Black men's engagement with work. Pew Center research supports Blacks' observations about Black male employment challenges. A recent study confirmed what Blacks already knew. According to the data, the engagement of Black men in the work sector lags behind all other groups, white, Asian, and Hispanic. Of course, there are reasons for this unfortunate yet familiar reality. The historical narrative and numerous studies have pointed toward a wicked brew of racial discrimination, inferior schools, incarceration, lack of apprenticeship, and job training opportunities as the culprits in the maintenance of far too familiar last hired, first fired positions ensnaring Black men. While more Black men between the ages of 25 and 54 are working at an 81% rate that outpaces previous years, other groups outpace them with an 87% rate. These numbers only reflect those actively pursuing legitimate employment. The reported numbers of Black male unemployment understate the problem, as such data fails to include the incarcerated. Although a sober thought, Black men who are not gainfully employed are unmarriageable because they are unable to provide for a wife and offspring. Such realities severely handicap the Black community, whose flourishing hinges upon the family to serve as a cornerstone. Ultimately, it becomes clear that a single policy decision is inadequate to solve what could be termed the most crucial matter facing Black America. There is no one size fits all solution to such a historically based problem, undergirded by racism. One thing is sure: without work, everything is rotten. It always has been, and it always will be.
Mm. Wow, that is a great, great, great piece. And I think that's something that we all definitely have to understand and be prepared to do something about it.
Mhm.
Um, Now, when you use the word rotten, uh, are you just referring to the lack of money, or is there also a spiritual decay that happens to a man's soul when he cannot produce his own?
Oh, certainly it's multifaceted. And there is a spiritual component to being able to provide. You
Mhm.
know, I don't think that it's accidental that the wisest amongst us, before we consume food, we pray to God and give thanks that we have something to eat, something to consume. And I could never imagine what it would be like to be a father, to be a husband, where you are sitting there and you see your child walk through the living room, or your children go through the living room, and their stomachs are grumbling because you haven't been able to provide anything for them to eat. And so the entire idea of being a provider, being a stabilizing force in your family's life and your family's existence, is spiritual at every level. And you'll often see many Black men sort of retreat from the family, retreat from that status if they cannot provide. You know, I'm doing an independent study right now with a one of my students who
Mhm.
didn't work out her degree plan accordingly, and now she's up against it, and she's trying to graduate this semester and needed a class. So we're doing an independent study. So we meet at about 7 o'clock in the morning via Zoom to talk about this, and somehow we got to talking about something that's close to this issue about what manhood is and what womanhood is.
Mhm.
And I played her Gwen Guthrie's song, "Ain't Nothing Going On But the Rent."
Mhm.
Gotta have a job if you want to be with me. Okay.
Mhm.
So in every way, the idea of being able to provide is directly tied to the development of the Black family.
Mm.
And when you're talking about being a provider being so crucial to a Black man's existence, the inability to do that in many ways renders you almost in a scrap heap to the side of society. Because ultimately, although you can produce a bunch of children, you're not really building a legacy. And that's an issue. That's a problem. And Black folk have historically, and we have to return to the idea of doing those things that matter most, not
Mhm.
only in our lifetime, but as we go to join the ancestors as well.
Doc, when we're dealing with the part where you're talking about being unmarriageable
Mhm.
for a man if you can provide and protect your family. In this world, they're always coming up with new definitions, especially of what a man is, talking about manhood. Now, if we follow these new definitions and they don't construct or go with what you just defined as manhood, are we setting our sons up for failure if we don't teach them that they must be able to provide and protect?
Well, certainly. Well, certainly. There's something about the male socialization process that must be different from that which women are receiving.
Mhm.
We are not the same. We are not built the same. There are some duties and some jobs, and I'm talking about within the family, that women are quite simply not equipped, generally speaking. They're not equipped to be able to deal with it, even if they are making a sizable amount of money. Women are by and large creatures of comfort. They have some things that they need to feel like themselves. They need to be pampered. They need to, all of these, the entire beauty industry is predicated and rests upon that idea. Men are not the same. Okay. And it's crucial that one comes up and teaches men, teaches boys, no, this is what you do as a man. This is what you have to do. Okay. And now you can teach it verbally, but the best way is obviously what? Through observation.
Mhm.
They need to see their father get up and go to work, even when he's sick. They need to see, the idea of him providing and being so worn out and so tired that the best that he can do is actually get in his favorite chair and go to sleep.
Mhm.
Maybe didn't even eat that night. He would prefer sleep and rest to eating. Okay, rushing
Mhm.
from here to there at their sporting events and what have you. Those are the measures and markers of manhood. But those things have to be taught. Those things have to be built inside of you. Otherwise, you are going to find a generation of men who are more likely to side and behave as women, as if they are in many ways seeking as much comfort as women.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's we've gotten it wrong. And you really, you I'm always, because this brother has gone on to meet with to join the ancestors, Jawanza Kunjufu. Jawanza Kunjufu's point that single female headed households, single moms, they raise their daughters and they love their sons.
Mm.
Okay. So you have a situation where a boy has been loved. That boy is soft. Okay. He doesn't really understand what hard work is going to be. And unfortunately, you have some women who don't want their sons to participate in hard work. I had a chance to encounter with a brother. I was in the market for a car, and we wound up sitting down just having this talk.
Mhm.
And he begins to talk about his nephew, who, as he put it, this boy got everything. He got everything he needed. Okay. And the boy
Mhm.
ends up in the penitentiary. That's kind of what our conversation was about. And I told him, I said, well, check it out. Look at it this way. Boys who get everything they need don't end up in the penitentiary. Let's be very clear about that. And so he has expounded upon what he meant. The boy, and he was married to a Mexican lady, so the boy was Mexican. This was his sister-in-law's boy.
Mhm.
He said, I would have him over at the house trying to help me around the house doing like yard work and things like that. He said his mother would pull up, blow her horn, tell him to get in the car because he is not going to be no damn landscaper, and didn't want him
Mhm.
learning how to do anything. He said,
Mm.
so it was her that interceded and disrupted what he was trying to teach the boy. I think that's a lot more common than people would ever want to admit, to be honest with you. um,
Mm.
and it's a problem. I can tell you from my own personal experience. Now, you know, I'm Captain Viola Jones's baby boy. Look here, I love my mama, and my mama loved me. Okay, now that Negro that she told me was my father, he ain't never been real nice to me. Okay, he just hasn't. You know, and our relationship is built on respect. It ain't built on no lovey-dovey type of stuff. It's respect. Okay.
Mhm.
I watched my father work swing shift as a steel worker. I watched him
Mm.
when I would come home from school. He had cooked food for us already. Okay, if he was going in at 3, we would have food ready for us when we got there. Um, that's my understanding of manhood. That even though he's got to go in at 3, he's sleeping probably from about 6 to about 2. He gets up, he makes dinner for his wife and his children. But when they get home, that's manhood to me.
Mm.
There wasn't, and I know no other form of manhood than to be self-sacrificing.
Wow.
Anything else is foreign to me. I don't understand men who go out and buy stuff for themselves. I ain't never seen that before. You like metrosexual or something? You go over there at the mall. You know what I'm saying? You out there
Right.
spraying cologne all in the air, walking through it like, oh, let's see what this smell like.
Right. Right.
Come on, come
Mm.
on. And so it's in many ways, if we're being honest about it, it's in many ways the recipe for dismantling a society. And
Mm.
you're dismantling what have been foundational principles within Black America, and you're
Mm.
replacing them with what? Because quite simply, the historical context, the economic suffering that Black folk have been under for the longest amount of time, that hasn't changed at all, hasn't
Right.
moved. So why are you trying to do your alteration wasn't caused by Black boys being able to have increased access to the employment sector. It wasn't caused by Black boys doing better in school. You just changed it, and now they're struggling as a result of that.
Mm. Wow. Exactly. Doc, when it comes to the violence that we see in our cities, is this actually a symptom of this rot that you talked about? Men with energy, but no industry?
Certainly, certainly, it's a symptom of it. I mean, when you really, matter of fact, it's my same friend I was talking about earlier,
Hmm.
whose mother said that about Black men. If you want to fix right, call a white man.
Hmm.
He ran a youth football program for a bunch of years, and he said this to me, and I've never forgotten it. He said, a Black boy who has his father in the home will never disrespect a coach. Never.
Mm.
He said, I've never seen it happen. He said, whereas boys who are raised by their mother, they're emotional. They can't
Mm.
handle, disappointment. They don't handle struggle and stress and what have you.
Mm.
These men that we see who are out here causing hurt and harm within Black America are, by and large, just generally speaking, they're devoid of fathers who taught them restraint. They don't have patience. So, in many ways, that impulse um, decision to go out and make it happen, to go get it, and listen to the language that is used. I got to go get it out the mud.
Mm.
Okay, what are you saying to us? And just as who's the brother, Ishmael Reed. Ishmael Reed was talking with one of my friends, John Calhoun,
Mm.
and Ishmael Reed told him, he said, listen, you got to remember, people can be no healthier than their stories.
Mm.
And when you really think about that, That speaks a lot. So when you're constructing and you're creating a narrative that talks about you coming up James Cleveland's rough side of the mountain and you got to go and get it out the mud. Well, in many ways, what you're saying is I have the ability to turn into a immoral beast that'll go out and exploit anybody I want to. You know, I'm thinking about a Tupac song where Pac is talking to a guy that's just the way it is. That's the title of the song. And he
Mhm.
says, "You made a G today, but you made it in a sleazy way." And the guy
Right.
says, "Well, I got to get paid." He
Well,
said, "Okay,
that's
well,
what
that's
it
just
is.
the way it is."
Exactly.
Okay. So in our rush to have the liberation of women in particular, we've left behind, and in the words of TLC, we're chasing waterfalls instead of the
Mm.
rivers and lakes that we're used to. So you're trying these new things, and these new things are not working. And so now you have several generations of girls who don't see the worth or utility or the value of marriage. And unfortunately, this loose, unplanned, wayward life that we see them living results in them producing innumerable children by a bunch of different women, a bunch of different men, which
Mm.
is going to exacerbate the problem because who's going to teach these girls what a wife is? Who's going to show them? They're definitely not going to see it happen within your home.
Nope.
So they're going to be out here on their own, and the way that they choose a mate is going to be the same way that you choose to mate because he cute. There's nothing beyond that. They have no
Mm.
idea. They've never even talked to a man about anything that is substantial. And so as a result of that, what you think you're gonna get? You're gonna get chaos upon chaos upon chaos upon chaos. And what is slowly occurring, and it's been occurring, I would say at a gradual pace for maybe the last 20 years.
Hmm.
You see a productive, legitimate, conservative black population that has receded from dealing with those people who want nothing to do with those people. And that's scary because
Mm.
in many ways you're talking about leaving, taking out the stabilizing force of a black population that needs it. You're talking about removing the church because any of the aid that you would have received from the church was predicated upon this population of black professionals and sensible black people to tithe and give money to the praise house. That's gone.
Mm.
That's gone now.
Mm. Mm.
And you have a situation where black people are actively talking about there's a certain population of people that we want nothing to do with. Okay. And these are people who are irresponsible, not sensible. Okay. They're just in it for a momentary moment of titillation. And black parents who've seen this unfold over the last 20, 30 years are warning their children against getting associated with those types of people. Stay away from them. Are they
Mm.
black? Yeah. They're a certain variant in type of black. But if you hook yourself up with them, you'll rise no higher than they're willing to go. And many of them are not willing to make a single movement, to lift themselves up, to better themselves up. They don't have a plan. And the reason they don't have a plan is because they've never been taught the basic mechanics of how life works. I
Mm.
speak with students often, um, and one of my initial questions when I'm I have like a major in history or a major in African American studies, the question is what I think is a simple one: where do you plan on being in 5 years?
Mhm.
The vast majority of them cannot answer that. They've never thought about that. And so if they haven't thought about 5 years, Lord knows they haven't thought about 10 years.
Good Lord.
I have students who believe that they're going to graduate school after they graduate. And the reason they're thinking about that is quite simply, well, I got to go to college after I finished high school. Well, you're sitting here with a GPA at 2.1. What grad school you going to? That's going to fund you. And if they don't fund you, well, then they're going to saddle you with $150,000 worth of debt. So you're going to lose either way.
Exactly.
And a part of that is the absence of mentoring. A part of that is the absence of parents knowing. And this is coming from someone who's first generation college. My parents didn't know. So I had to learn through trial and error.
Wow. You know, Doc, if without work all is rotten, then is unemployment a weapon of war used against us? Is keeping the black man idle is a strategic move to keep us dependent? What's your thoughts on that?
Keep you dependent upon what?
On white folks, on handouts.
I mean, you know me. I'm not a conspiracy person.
Right.
I don't think that white folk are necessarily working against you, by and large. I think that what we're seeing is that white folk are adhering to what George W. Bush told us to do. He said, listen, what you need to do is see which direction the nation is going, and you need to respond accordingly in a direction that is in your best interest. White folk are simply operating from what is best for them. And no surprise that what is best for them is usually not beneficial for us. So they're making moves and making decisions to get their children into college, to get their children opportunities, to build their business, okay, to start to use a home equity loan to start a business for their children. Been putting away money since he was conceived. You know, those are the things that they're doing. And I don't see those things as necessarily being directed or even considering black people, because black folk are not in their game. You know, my sister is a notary, and her being a notary has opened her eyes to how they handle business. And she's meeting people. She met a family that had they refinanced their home. And what they did with the refi of the home was actually buy enough property around their area that their 5 children now have property, and each child, when he finishes with college, will build a home on that property. Who do you know that's black that's doing that? And these are not extraordinary white folk, and these actions are totally open to us if we did it, but we don't do it.
Do you believe we don't do it because it's something that is not taught to us to do?
Yes, certainly. And that ties us directly back into the idea of mentorship, education, and things like that. You know, and when you look at information, and you look at the intellectual diet that black folks should be consuming, especially when you consider us being the most marginalized socioeconomic populace in America. One of my favorite YouTube channels is "I'll Teach You How to Be Rich," where this guy just simply sits someone down and they talk about their finances. In an hour's time, I can hear about the ins and outs and the do's and don'ts of someone else's finances. And I can use what is useful, and I can spit out the bones. Whatever ain't useful, I don't, it's just kind of wasted time. Versus turning around and looking at other channels talking about black single mothers are now woody woo 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 woo. Black women are broke. Black men ain't shit. You're wasting time. You're not getting information in regards to those things. So for me, the intellectual diet. What are you putting in your head? What are you interested in? And if you're just interested in silliness and gossip and things like that, that's what you're going to get out of life. And so I just rest upon the idea that white folk are doing what is in their best interest. And a part of them doing what is in their best interest is spending their time sharing that information around their community and within their family. It's not in their best interest to share it with us. And so they don't.
For me, I do believe in the quote unquote conspiracies that can be easily proven. When we stop and look at the minimum wage, when Roosevelt came out with that, to give people a better living situation, a lot of black folks lost their jobs because the white man said, if I got to pay a white man or I got to pay a nigga this, I might as well pay it to a white man.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of black people lost the jobs that they had. Did Franklin Roosevelt know that this was going to happen when he did it? Of course he knew that this was going to happen.
But see, let me push back against that with what you just said. But isn't that in their best interest?
Not necessarily, no. Not necessarily.
I think that's in their best interest, because what they're doing is they're employing more white folk, and they're doing what we call for our people to do, which is circulate the dollar within your community. I just see that as in their best interest.
The reason why I don't see it in their best interest, because 9 times out of 10, the majority of their customers are going to be black folks. That's going to be the majority of their customers. So it's like when you cut out the people. A better example, when President Bush gave that money and told people, don't go put it in the bank, don't go pay no bill, go out and spend it. Go out and spend it, right? Because the economy was falling, and the economy works off of people actually going out and spending the money to keep everything rolling. If the majority of your customers are black people, but yet you're going to not pay, you're not going to help them to have money. You're going to stop them because, hell, if I got to pay a black person a minimum wage, I might as well pay it to a white person, who in turn is not necessarily going to shop with you or do this with you. But these damn black folks are going to come and rush and spend their money with you. So I don't see it as in their best interest, especially when you're dealing with profits and loss.
Yeah, but see, what I would say to that is quite simply, there's so many unknowns there, and that you would probably, black folk gonna go there regardless, because we are in many ways a captive consumer. Okay, but I would like to see data about the white folk that they gave jobs to, are they shopping there? Otherwise, that's just like an unknown, as to are the white folk circulating the money there, the money that they just received? Do they have enough sense to do that?
One thing for B1 that we say that our goal is to provide a fertile ground for black people to be able to do for themselves. If we are to stop this rot, what is the first system we need to put in place? Is it trade schools? Is it entrepreneurships? Where do we start the surgery to remove the rot?
You start in the schools, and you start in the home. And the first stage is the socialization process. You'd be amazed how many of our people would not understand the concept of what you just said would be one. They don't understand it. They haven't been taught that. They haven't lived it. They haven't seen anyone else who actually lived it. So I would say, and when I say schools, I really mean socialization process, to get them to understand those types of concepts. And when you're really talking about rebuilding Black society and things like that, I think that you're really going to have to reorient the Black mind in general. Think about it this way. Since the 1960s, Black parents have always sent their children to school to get an education so that they can get a job. They're not sending them there with the mindset of being an entrepreneur. They're not sending them there with the idea of one day owning their own. One of the things that I'm dealing with right now with writing, I have probably about 5 books done, and we're about to launch a press. I want complete ownership of my press. I don't want to be beholden to anyone else. I want this to be a Black press and clearinghouse where not only my writings, but other Black folks' writings can go. Now, what has been the reception of that? Oh man, you crazy. You ought to just send that off to Cambridge. They'll publish that right now. I don't want to do that because there's a larger goal and a larger idea that I have in mind. And that larger goal and idea is not predicated upon profit. It's predicated upon a whole lot of other things above and beyond profit. The idea of Black ownership, the idea of us being able to do it on our own. However, we'll see how that becomes, what comes of that. But that's the direction that I'm going.
Definitely. I think that's a good thing to do. When you think about safe spaces, how do you feel about that?
When I think about safe spaces are wonderful things to have. But now, if you're asking me, do I believe that Black men have safe spaces? Maybe the barbershop, maybe. Some of the most memorable and best conversations that I've ever had have occurred within the safe space of a barbershop. And I know the difference between a conversation that happens in the barbershop with just Black men, and even if there's, how that conversation changes with one Black woman being present. It's a whole different conversation, whole different tone and tenor. So the idea of safe spaces theoretically are wonderful. However, having people who have enough emotional intelligence to understand how unique they are and the sanctity of it and the sacredness of it, that's a whole different question.
Do safe spaces, I guess, make it easy for you? It takes away the difficulty factor. It takes away the challenges.
No, I don't think that safe spaces do any of those things.
Okay.
I believe that safe spaces are going to they're going to present you an opportunity to go ahead and speak freely without any immediate judgment or significant consequences of what it is that you're sharing. That's what it's going to do. It's not going to make your existence as a Black man any easier. It's not going to solve any of your problems. It's going to just allow you to participate in and it's difficult for me to even refer to it as a public space because it's not a public space. It's more of a semi-public space. It's a regulated space.
And so, because I hear this term often, Black men need safe spaces. And to me, it sounds like the people are really saying that Black men can't deal with difficulty. They can't deal with the fact that if you say this person is going to oppose your views, and then you feel like you need somebody to protect you because you can't say what you feel.
No. The idea of Black men having safe spaces, just consider being inside of a marriage. And you married poorly, and you end up with a woman who is a battle axe. Let's just call her what she is. She's difficult. She's a contrarian. She doesn't want to. If you say blue, she said red. Okay. The level of discord and animosity that black man is going to experience within that space, that's no longer a safe space. And if you can't have a safe space at home where you can talk in privacy, intimately with your partner, that's a problem. It's a major league problem. So the idea of someone pushing back against you in a safe space, it happens all the time. It's just a space where you're able to express how it is that you feel amongst what I would argue like-minded people who share some type of demographic identifier with you.
Okay. So when we have to step up to the plate to battle old boy Nick and his group, one of the ways that must be challenged in is the electoral space. What do you think it will take for, and I'm going to use the word real, black men to step up and run for office? Give you an example. I don't consider Speaker Jeffries as a real black man. I just don't. He plays the game with them.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Exactly. And I don't consider him a real black man. He would not even, I don't think that he would be man enough to have a real conversation, black man to black man, about some of the issues that we discuss. I don't think that he would be man enough to have that.
See, I disagree wholeheartedly.
Okay.
Because there's a public face in a public space where one has to kind of present yourself in your language, in a very palatable way where the masses can understand it. The reason why I push back and I say that I don't necessarily agree with that is that I know who Hakeem Jeffries' uncle was. And it's hard for me to believe that in one generation that they would divert that far from who he was. And his cousin Hakeem works in the African American Studies department at Ohio State, or at least he used to. These are Leonard Jeffries people, and Leonard Jeffries was a bad boy. Period. I don't think that you would have, and remember, it's Hakeem Jeffries who stood up in front of Congress and recited a Biggie line. Okay. Now, if you know now, you know, but he didn't say nigga at the end of it. Okay. But I hesitate to say those things about those brothers when I don't know them personally or have seen a big enough sample to say that with authority. Now, there are some of them, like if you look at I'll throw what's his name, Clyburn in there, the Democrat. I'll throw of course Clarence Thomas in there, despite him having a very different and dubious background of being one of the most conversant individuals in the speeches and the writings and the readings of Brother Malcolm. I don't think those brothers would do it, but Jeffries, I'm not sold that he wouldn't.
He has been lockstep with Israel.
Oh, now you talking about Israel now? That's something totally
all
different.
the way. No, ain't no.
That's something totally different.
Ain't no different.
We were talking about him having a conversation with black men.
It ain't no different. If you a black man, if you a man, and you see what you see, the genocide that's going on committed by Israel, and you're going to get out there in front of the world and how much you love Israel and they got a right to do this or that, you ain't no fucking man. You is not, you not no black man. Ain't no goddamn way. He's punctified. He's punctified. And the more of it, when you see that, then you know he has already done sold our asses out without even a think of a dot of what will be the consequences of it. See, that is the line to be able to see.
Yeah, but that's not what you asked me. You get what I'm saying? I don't. That wasn't what you asked.
That goes toe to toe. Most definitely. Most definitely, that goes toe to toe. He's, you know, one day we need to do a program and show up all these political people of what they really like, what is their real voting record and how anti-black they really are. And then maybe our people will be able to see the scheme better than they see it now because they blind as all get out.
Yeah, but when you're talking about anti-black and the black voting record, my question would be quite simply, when do black issues come up for vote? You know, what's his name is dead now. John Conyers, who was trying to do the reparations bill that they didn't support. But what other black issue has come up that they voted on?
And that's the point. These in the so-called quote unquote congressional black caucus don't bring black people issues to the forefront. And when a small issue do eventually make it there, then they do what? Oh, they turn around and go a different way. Oh, man, please. Ain't no damn way. Ain't no way. We need to pull the cover off their ass and show them as they are. And it's really pathetic.
What I'll say is put it together, put the evidence together, and we can do it.
Definitely. We're gonna do that. We're gonna put the evidence together and we're gonna do this because it's time. The emperor has no clothes. The hell with all that. We got to show them as they are.
Yeah.
And this is why, Doc, to me, you said, and you had said this years ago before, but you said that the students at the college, their numbers are so that they can have the next mayor, the DA, they can have all of it.
Yeah.
They can rule all of it.
Yeah.
And they choose not to.
Yeah. Many of them actually fought against the idea of them being able to even vote in the elections in Waller County, and had convinced themselves that it is unfair. You know, that it's unfair that they will have voting rights at their college and their university, despite the idea, and I mean despite the idea, that the U.S. Supreme Court weighed in on it and said that you have more of a right to vote at a college location than you do in your home election, because quite simply you're in college 9 months out the year versus 3. And many of them shocked the hell out of me. They said no, and refused to vote in the college election. Refused to. Now, how do you counterbalance that? How do you work around that? I have not an idea. I'm reminded of 1 year because of voting rights, because it is the only place in America where there is a black majority when you consider the population of students within Waller County. They had a movement because local DA said if black students tried to vote, he was going to have them arrested. And they had this big rally. Sheila Jackson Lee was there, and make a long story short, it was a day that it looked like it was going to rain. It was a Tuesday, and the reason I know it was a Tuesday, it was a Wednesday, is because Wednesday on that campus is known as Hump Day. And what they do is they bring the DJs out, the rappers out, and what have you. And for 2 hours, like between 11 and 1, they play rap music. People stand around, the sororities and fraternities, they stroll and what have you. Well, because it was threatening to rain that day, they moved Hump Day inside of the MSC, which is where the rally had been moved to as well. Well, they ended up when it was time to roll out, not 20 students left. So you have a small trail of students who are going, and when you really, I'm just a stickler for it starts within the home. And I guarantee you that so many of those students had been raised in homes where the parents didn't vote. And so they don't see any reason to really go and vote because it isn't going to matter, despite the fact that they're able to, they could win every single seat in election, every seat within the entire county if they just all got registered and voted. We tried to talk to them about creating gave it a slick name, the Panther Party, because they are the Panthers. That's their mascot. It still didn't take hold. So you have significant, legitimate apathy, political apathy, that's really taken root within not just those students, but also within Black America.
That's a damn shame. That really is.
Well, what makes it worse is quite simply, the Sandra Bland issue. Even that didn't get them rallied up to go out and get registered to vote and take the county over.
Mm, mm, mm.
So
Wow.
what do you do with that? And that's one of the major problems. What do you do with a student population that you have significant parts of it who seemingly don't care about anything that is not popular culture? You have some, but it's always feast or famine, to be honest with you. They either get it or they don't get it at all.
Mm. We definitely have to do better, and it needs to be an urgency with that because we cannot allow our enemies to rule over us. That has to change. It just has to change. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts.
Well, but they're the priority far too often is getting a purse, getting a Hellcat, a Dodge Charger Hellcat. That's where the priority is. Trinkets and things like that. That's where the focus is. And if you're really making it, you have those things. And if you don't have those material accoutrements, if you're not wearing an expensive watch or what have you, you're going to be looked at as a chump. And it's just what it is. It's how they've been raised.
Mm, mm, mm.
And so the idea, we talk about uplifting Black America. Start at home. Start at home. What is it that is causing people to continue to raise children generation after generation who don't care about anything that's real?
We got to do better. Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about that. We got to do better.
I agree.
When we can see that a spirit, an ideology that is spreading, and it's spreading among young white folks that it is better for them to control Black people versus letting Black people live free, which they say our free living is nothing but chaos. So we have to be brought to heel.
You know,
Brought to
I,
control.
I had a situation at the Texas State House. It was Black Legislators Day. Who's the brother? Sylvester Turner. He was still alive then, and he was in the State House. And Sylvester Turner wanted to have a barbecue after the State House celebration. So for lunch, we were all going to go over and we were all going to eat barbecue under this tent. Well, it starts raining like crazy, and the front of the State House to the barbecue place, it couldn't have been 50 feet. It wasn't 50 feet away. Okay, right there on the grounds. I watched this as Black students refused to walk out into the rain. Okay. They wouldn't go out until they had went and got all of these umbrellas, and the people were walking students across to the where they were going to eat with the umbrella to make sure rain didn't hit them. Okay. We're leaving the State House, okay, on a bus. There was a group of white people. I don't know if they were students or what school they belonged to or what have you. But they were standing out there in the pouring rain. No umbrellas, no nothing. Protesting the use of African child soldiers in wars. And said that, their signs were like, we need to do something serious about this and this, this and that. Okay. The Black students who were on the bus said, they out they fucking mind. Ain't no way I would be out there in that rain for nothing. How do you combat that? What do you say to that population? Because in many ways that population is engulfed in almost a when we talk about the fall of Russia, an iron curtain. They're incubated with an iron curtain of ignorance. I had a student who expressed significant concerns about her grade. And she said that I needed to help her with her attendance. Now, how in the world can I help you make it to class on time? To make it to class. That's what I'm supposed to do. And so it's either feast or famine, or we have a section, a segment of our children who are killing it. And then we have a segment of them who don't care about anything. And they'll tell you they don't care about nothing. Now, can you turn that on within them? I highly doubt it.
Master Farad Muhammad said that there's a big wide open field out there waiting for the Black man to work out in. And I think that we have to become more militant in our desires to conquer. Because I think a lot of us have gotten so comfortable in our daily existence that in the children or I can't call them children because they're not children, but damn near young adults, I think will probably be the best term for them. They don't, to me, you correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, but they don't understand the danger that lies for them ahead. They don't understand that old boy Nick is really dangerous. And he's dropping seeds, fertile ground of minds of other white boys that will walk up to you and take a knife and stab you in your throat. It's like one of them that walked up to the black boy at a Maryland university and said something about Valhalla, and the black boy like, what are you talking about? Boom! Too late now. You dead. You done let this dude get all up in your space, and he say something about Valhalla, and you lost because you don't know what the hell he talking about. And next thing you know, he strikes you and you're dead.
Yeah, but see what I would say to what you're saying right now, and this is the harsh, unfortunate part of it. They ain't never even heard the name Nick Fuentes. Okay, I remember when the federal government had passed some new regulations about student loans. Okay, how these things were changing, this, and that, right? I asked my students when I went into class, I said, yeah, did you see the breaking news and what actually happened? Okay. Do you know what my students said to me?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. We saw Nicki Minaj file for divorce. It was one of the rap or hip hop people that they filed for divorce. There is a science to knowing, a hierarchy in regards to what's important and what is unimportant. Our children are not being raised in an organized environment to understand those things. And, I hate to borrow something from Bill Cosby's pound cake speech, but Cosby makes the comment. He says, well, listen, I thought that the child was bad until I saw who answered the door. So you're talking about multi generations of enforced ignorance.
Mm-mm.
What do you do with that? How do you turn that on? How do you reverse that? There's a, although it would be looked at as being extreme and draconian, maybe black children need to start being seized from parents and raised within a black village, a black nationalist village, where they'll learn to value some of these things.
Mm-mm.
Because what's going on right now, it's not working. I'm right now trying to teach the autobiography of Malcolm X to my students. I had one student in a class of 77 who had read the first 3 chapters. The rest of them literally sit there with their laptops open, watching TV, playing video games, this, and that. And this is me. I know I'm engaging. I know I'm interesting.
Mm-mm. All right, we are at our end. We're going to move to closing comments. Doc, and in your closing comments, Master Farad Muhammad said to make all men and boys join the FOI.
Mm.
What do you think he meant by that? What was he saying, but just not straight out saying it, coded language evidently? What do you think that was, and how could it be helpful?
Well, what I think that he was actually saying is quite simply to instill the principles of the FOI in all boys, even if they're not Muslims, even if they're not involved with the Nation of Islam, that there should be a instilling of discipline, a respect, of a recognition of a hierarchy, that all those things, sacrificing, working to be a provider, a protector, knowing about something in the world that stretches beyond who the starting 5 for the Lakers are, about the real substantive things of life. There's something to be said for forced compulsory military service. And I know a lot of people don't want to consider that or think about that. But there's some within our midst who need that type of discipline. They've never sat under or experienced any form of discipline before in their lives. So where are they going to get it? You're not going to get it just because you're aging. So the idea of becoming a righteous, upstanding, honorable man, that's what he's talking about. That's what he's calling for people to be, to stand for something, stand for a principle. And, as always, just glad to be here, brother. Just glad to be here building.
Definitely. Definitely. And so I think our people need to understand that we will wage a war, and it will be economic, it will be political, and it will be spiritual. We have to understand the economic principles by which we have to operate from. Because without that money, as Doc said, all is rotten. All is rotten. And so we have to become good fruit. We have to become good fruit. And so I want to thank everybody who stayed with us and also commented with us. And please like and share, subscribe so we can continue to push this message out. And as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm going to kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Peace.
Shucks.